Different. Everybody's staying in church today. Oh no, Peyton. I was talking to Peyton, Mary, sorry. She's under the pew. That's just where she normally hangs. That's okay. So kids, we're going to stay in church this morning. Is that all right? What? Kids can stay in church? That's crazy. We're trying something new this morning, so you all are really, really up there on the old World Wide Web. We're doing Facebook Live as well as our Ustream Live, so we're right in the news feed of potentially 1 billion people. We're really out there, so trying that this morning. So anybody that's watching live, if we stutter, if there's something wrong, we apologize. We'll try to make it right next week, maybe. If you've been around here for a couple of weeks, we've been looking at the life of Elisha, who was the protege of Elijah. Elijah was his mentor. Elijah was a great miracle worker. We said that he had more miracles than Jesus recorded in the Bible. So we started studying about Elisha. And first week we talked about killing cows and burning plows. So if you remember that, it's not looking back. When God calls you to do something, you burn all your plows so that you don't, maybe you're not tempted to go back, but more importantly, shows your commitment level. You jump right in there. And last week we talked about digging ditches and getting ready. So showing God your faith so that then He will reveal to you His faithfulness. Now, it's not conditional faithfulness. It's not you've got to dig the ditch to see it. It's so that you can see it. All right? So God's faithfulness is always going to be there. You're not responsible for God to show up. All right? We need to stop thinking we're that important, that God's only going to show up when His people are faithful. All right? If that's the case, sorry, God's probably not going to show up very often. You might look faithful, but our lives show that we're not very faithful. But as we are faithful and God shows up, those two things happen, we get to put the pieces together. We get to see it within the context of our lives. And then as things happen, He gets credit for it that way, right? And that's what this whole thing's about. You want to wonder why you're here. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what's going on. Listen, it's so that God gets glory out of your life. Newsflash, it's not so that you can be successful. It's not so you can have the greatest children on the planet. It's not so that you can go to the greatest church on the planet, even though most of you do. But it's so that God gets glory out of your life. Quit looking for anything else, and you'll be more satisfied, honestly. That's what our end is. So today, though, we're going to look at gathering pots, all right? Not pot, all right? That's not legal yet. So pots, plural, we gather some pots, or actually what the Bible will say, gather some jars. I just like to say gathering pots, but we're gonna gather some jars. We're going to look over in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1. Well, when we get there, real quick, Bo, if you're looking forward to next week, I've never announced what we're going to talk about the next week because I really don't know. Right now, I think God is going to tell us that we're going to look at this last story of Elisha. If you've ever seen the story of Elisha about the axe head, have y'all read that story? He makes an iron axe head float. It's really cool. But the context of next week is some of you have maybe lost your spiritual edge. I mean, you used to be this way for God, and now you're kind of this way. I mean, it's just kind of you're just, let's just say it, you're dull. All right? You're just in God's eye, or in the spiritual realm, you're just kind of dull. I mean, you're existing, you're there, you go to church, and you're kind of looking forward to heaven, but as far as God goes, that's as far as you go. Right? So next week we're going to talk about gaining your spiritual edge back. Gaining your spiritual edge back, and we're going to look at the story of this axe head that floats. All right? But today, gathering some jars. Now, I don't know if you have ever found yourself in a situation to where what you would call a huge life dilemma, right? I mean, just something that's got you really, really down. What we would call almost oppressed, right? But it's actually something that's going on in life. I mean, it's not like you don't feel a spiritual weight, which is one thing, but it's something going. It could be financial, it could be relational. It's just anything that's pushing you down, that's causing pain. Or you've said things like, "This one it's just too much." You know, I've done this and this, but this, man, when this came upon me, I just don't know that I've got the strength to go on. I don't know that I've got the will to push through it. That's who I want to talk to today. Whether you've been there or you still are there, or maybe you're there, but you're kind of less like not dealing with it. I mean, anybody's like me, if you got a really big problem, the best way to fix it, to ignore it and hope that it just goes away on its own. Anybody like that? Fight or flight? I like to run. But maybe it's still there and you understand it, so you want to kind of deal with it maybe. So maybe you find yourself, you're just kind of running on empty, and you don't know where to turn. This story, I think, will minister to you. I think it'll really speak to you. Let's dive in. Look at 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1. We read 1 and 2 together. This is how the story starts. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." One more. Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." So hold there and let's just look. Let's just for these 2 verses, and there's actually a lot there if you look at it, and what's what I want to do and see. So first thing to understand, we don't really know who she is. It doesn't really tell us, just a woman. Now, many people have looked at this story and they've said, well, we think we know who she is. We think she's the wife of Obadiah. And it actually fits in with the story. If she's the wife of Obadiah, because she's in the company of a bunch of prophets, all right, Obadiah would have been the chief among about 50 or 60 prophets at the time. And what happened in the life of the chief priest or the chief prophet, they would go and they would take all of their resources that they had and they would push it out to the other prophets. And what happened was that the chief prophet typically found themselves or their family struggling just to make ends meet. All right? So this is the life that this woman probably lived. All right? So she was the wife of a prophet who has now died. We're going to say it's Obadiah. And she's found herself, has always lived her life kind of struggling, but she managed, all right? She did it. She kind of pushed on through, but now she finds herself in a pretty deep hole. We say she's probably early to mid-30s at this time in her life. So here's the other situation she finds herself in. She's basically unemployable unless she wants to do the job that no self-respecting woman does. I'll just let that hang there. Okay? Because she is employable in that one aspect. So she's kind of in a devastated place. Not only that, but it also says that she's about to lose her sons. The law said that if you were in debt when your husband died, they could come and get your sons and make them slaves until the year of Jubilee. You know what the year of Jubilee is, right? It's the big old reset button. It's when everything went back, you got it back. All right? If you had loaned money, you lost it. But if you were the debt holder, it was freed. No more debt. Right? So if you were somebody's slave at that point, freed. So the year of Jubilee. So she's looking to this, and she knows this is coming. So now she can't pay her debts. She knows that she's losing hope. This is pretty devastating, all right? Now, I just want to put it kind of in context for you. It's not the same kind of life-devastating things that I find myself having to deal with all the time. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but for example, sometimes Siri will take me to the wrong place when I'm using her GPS function. Has that ever happened to you? And it is really devastating when you find yourself kind of going in a circle and you really want to yell at someone. All you've got's that stupid little voice in there, who I believe firmly is real, okay? And she lives inside my phone, and every time she does that to me, she says, and she probably says something like, "I never get tired of this. This is so fun." But it really messes me up, right? We're not talking about that kind of life devastation, all right? We're not near. That's like an entry-level life devastating event, all right? Wouldn't you say? Yeah, or maybe, and there are some women, and I know none of these, okay? I don't know any of these women. But there are some women who walk into a closet full of clothes, and they kind of walk down the row, and what do they say? Nothing to wear. Yet you could clothe an entire African village, right? But they have nothing to wear. That's sort of an entry-level life devastation event, right? It's there, we have it, but that's not the kind of devastating event I want you to focus on this morning. I want you to feel her pain, or I want you to see it from her perspective. Now, if you got teenagers, here's one more example that it's kind of hard. Have you ever I have teenage girls who take Instagram photos, right? And then they kind of watch it, and they want to see those numbers climb. It's like me this afternoon. I'll get back on Facebook Live, and I'll say who is watching, right? I want to see that number. And that number doesn't rise. And so the teenager will look at that and say, well, maybe I should have taken it from the other side. Or they tell me, never take a picture like this. Always do it like this. I don't know what that means, but you're supposed to do that, right? Caitlin, am I telling the truth? Yeah, see, she teaches. Not that kind of life devastation, all right, that your followers aren't as big as you'd like for them to be. Okay, so I want you to keep those entry-level, life-devastating events in one side, and then I want you to feel the pain of a woman who has lost her husband, financially completely desolate, and about to lose her sons. It's a big difference. That's where I want us to look at, and that's where I want you to kind of feel this from, because some of you have probably been at least close to that, okay? These things, those entry-level things can kind of feel like it in the moment. These other ones feel like it for long term. They stay with you. You kind of carry them around as baggage. And that's what she's doing. She's crying out. There's a significant need in her life. And I want you to know, today you've got a significant need maybe. And it's inside of you, and it's drawing you around, or maybe it's you know somebody, or you went to a doctor and you didn't get the news, or they didn't get the news that you thought they should get. All right, and it's that sort of thing, or maybe you have lost or are about to lose everything, and everything you've got kind of tied into that, and it's starting to slip away, and you feel your claws just kind of holding on. Come on, I was almost there. I almost made it, and it feels like I'm about to drown. That's the kind of thing I want us to pull her out. So she feels this, and she expresses it to the prophet. Now look at what the prophet, I want you to see what the prophet does, but first, I want you to see what the prophet doesn't say. He doesn't say, oh man, that stinks. Right? Oh, I feel bad for you. He doesn't say that. That's not what he responds. That's not what Elisha comes back and says. He doesn't blow her off. Like if I'm hurting, have you ever been hurting and somebody says, I'll be thinking of you? Yeah, back to last week, I'd really like to lay hands on those people, right? Okay, I don't want you thinking about me, all right? Now, it's fine. If you want to pray for me, tell me you're praying for me, and let's have that kind of relationship. But don't just walk away and say, I'll be thinking of you. Because no, you won't. What you'll be thinking of is, I'm so glad I'm not him, right? My problems don't feel near as bad now, right? I don't want to be that guy in your life, all right? I want you to interact. I want you to become part. So that's what God would call us to do. God would call us to do what the prophet does. When someone comes to you with some sort of that need, he would expect you to respond in a way that looks like that. Look at, he makes himself available. So that's in verse 2. How, there's your 5 words. You need to learn these 5 words and be ready to say them. How can I help you? What can I do? Don't respond with, well, I don't have anything to do with that. I don't have any way to fix that. Because when someone comes to you with a specific need, all right, when they're at that point, they're reaching out, and I promise you, you've got something, or you have the connection to get to something. So our response should always be, how can I help you? Because in their mind, they have a perspective. They're looking at this lens. When they tell you about their need, they kind of know what they're wanting from you, right? And don't assume. Don't assume it's money. When somebody comes up and they say, oh man, let me tell you where I'm at, all right? Don't just assume, oh, you want money. Listen to what's going on in their life and just say, how can I help you? If the response is money, guess what? You'll have it. You'll have. If God has put this thing together and you're listening to him and they're listening to him and he says, go to them, and they come to you and they say, this is where I'm at, and you respond, how can I help? They're going to give you the how can I help, and boom, there's going to be an answer, and it's going to be within your grasp. You may not like it. You may not feel it, but it's going to be there. When you respond, how can I help? Now don't just so you know, if you don't want to be put in that position, don't ask. Don't respond, how can I help? The best way to not help somebody is to make sure you don't offer. All right? Just stay walled up. Just stay over here with God and make sure everything's good in your life. Don't worry about anybody else on the other side of the wall, and you'll never be put in this position. You'll never even you may not even get asked. That was tongue-in-cheek in case you're not paying attention. I don't know. But isn't it funny? Look at what she does. So he says, no, back up. So he says, how can I help? And then he prompts her a little bit. What do you have? Isn't it funny? The way she answers is the exact same way you answer when there's a big problem. She focuses on what she doesn't have. She said, I have nothing. And he said, you have nothing? I think Elisha would maybe push back. How can I help you? Now, what do you have? What are we working with? And immediately our mind goes to what I don't have. It never goes to what I've got. I never respond to God with, now this is all I've got. I always respond to God with, this is what I need, God. This is, I know, I already know where I am. I need to tell you, God, where I need to be. Isn't that like you? Or am I the only one? I'm sorry, I'll just preach to myself. It's a camera, I'll go home, I'll watch it. Then at the end of the day, I'll just come back out. No, she says, I have nothing at all. And I believe he pushed back, and I believe like, you sure? Well, I've got this jar of olive oil. And it's got, now you got to picture it. It would have been a decent sized jar, okay? It would have probably been like, have you ever seen those big planter things? We're told that they're these huge jugs that you would actually carry around. Some of them had spigots in them. Some of them they dipped out of the top. And she would have said, I have a small jar. And now what she would mean is she would have a large jar with just a small amount in it. So she has a little bit of olive oil. So he pushes back, and I believe God would push back on you whenever you say, this is what I need. God would say, what you got? And you would say, I got nothing. He would go, come on now, what you got? And then you would start counting what you've got. You'd be like, well, I got a house, I got a car, I got a family, yeah. But I don't have this. So our first kind of clue this morning is God has given you everything you need to do everything he wants you to do. He's given you everything you need to do everything that he wants you to do. What is this small jar of olive oil? Man, honestly, this is actually quite valuable. I mean, olive oil was used for a lot of stuff. It was used for cooking. It's pretty important. It was used to keep iron from rusting. It's pretty important. It was used for anointing in religious ceremonies. That's pretty important. It was used for lighting their lamps. They would burn it. That's pretty important. I mean, so now we got electricity. We got food. All this stuff that would be you and I when we say we don't have anything, and then we start counting these little things, and they start to add up. And when we look at it that way, we're like, oh, well, maybe I do have what God wants me to have to do what he wants me to do. See, when we stop looking at what we don't have and we start looking at what we do have, it changes our perspective of what we need to be doing. Yeah, if you've got this huge desire to go do something that God maybe didn't call you to do, and then you start praying for the resources to do what you want to do, and then you start saying, well, God's not listening to me. Guess what? No, you're not listening to him. Because God would have that turned back on you. And he would say, well, what do you got? And then you would answer. And you would start to count everything you've got. And then he would say, now we're going to do with what you've got. Now we're going to rephrase the plan. We're going to reset you up here. All right? We're not going to go your path. We're going to go my path, God would say. And we're going to use what you've already got, and we're going to go for it. Oil was actually used to soften their skin, right? Because they couldn't run out to Bath and Body Works to grab the squirt stuff, put on there. I mean, this olive oil was really important to this. I mean, to their life. But she failed to see it. She failed to see the value. And isn't that like you? You fail to see the value of what you have that God has given you. You don't count them as blessings. You don't see it as God-given. You see, when we're showing God our faith, he shows us his faithfulness. When we come back to him and say, I believe everything I've got is because of you, he says, duh, look how faithful I've been. And you're able to go, yeah, absolutely. Now, what do you want me to use for what I've got, God? What do you want me to do with it? And he'll show you because he's got it. It happened all the time in the New Testament. New Testament, there was this, the story where they've all been ministered to all day. They've had a long church day. I mean, not as long as Beach Baptists, but they had a really long church day. And they were getting really hungry, and they were like, well, how are we going to feed all these people? And the disciples were like, I ain't got no money. I ain't got no food. And this little boy walks up and goes, I got a little. I got like some fish and some bread. And Jesus was like, cool, let's do it. Let me take what you've got, and we're gonna accomplish the need with what you've got. And he multiplied it, because in the hands of God, a little bit goes a long way. Right? And it just kept coming. It ended up with 12 baskets left. Oh, that's pretty crazy. Right? pretty clear in the Old Testament when there was this army that was afraid of the Philistines. And they looked out, and all they saw was what they didn't have to conquer this army. And this little boy showed up with a little rock. And he says, I know, yeah, look, all you guys, you see somebody too big to beat. I see somebody too big to miss. Right? It reminds me, we had a conference at the retreat center this week, and there was a band that came in, and they played with us, and on the last night, they brought their lead guitar, and I called him the Mountain. He told us what he did. We stood up, and everybody's like, hey, this is what I do, and he goes, I manage a Planet Fitness, and everybody's like, that explains a lot. But literally, the guy was a mountain. I mean, like, Phil, you're a pretty big guy. This guy's, you look like a dwarf to him. I mean, I was just like, wow, this guy's huge. You're too big to miss. I really thought about Goliath there. You're too big to miss. And that's what David said. David looked at this guy and he's like, I believe you're too big to miss. And he basically looked at his army and said, y'all need to duck. Right? Because he's low. And he beats this guy. A little bit of faith, little stone. God took his little thing, took out a big thing. Right? And it's very clear in the New Testament, Jesus looks at everybody and he's like, hey, your faith, I know you're wanting this big faith, you're wanting to do these big things, and God's like, if you just take a little bit, what we would call a mustard seed faith, it's a little thing. You can actually look at a mountain and cast it into the sea with just this little bit of thing. God can take little things and do great things with it. He's given you everything you need to do everything He wants you to do. And yet you and I aren't satisfied, and you and I find ourselves in need, and we find ourselves in want, and we start looking at what we don't have, and God reminds us, no, this is what you got. So our life lesson in that is stop waiting for what you want and start working with what you have. Stop waiting for what you want and get to work with what you've got. Because God doesn't put us on the planet to just kind of spin our wheels. I love to hear from Christians when they say, well, I'm just waiting on God to send me to do something next. Let me get you something. God's waiting on you to go to work with what He already gave you. That's what He's waiting on. He's the one waiting, not you. All right? It's not like God's this, okay, so He is a physician, but He's like a doctor where you're sitting in the waiting room just waiting on Him to tell you what's next. He's waiting on you to do with what He's already given you. He's working ahead of you, I promise. Okay? We're not that important, all right? Where we come to God and go, this is what I got. What do you want me to do? Well, I'm ready. Here's what I got. I've already gathered my stuff. I'm ready to go. No. He's waiting. He's already provided it. He's already given you the instruction. And now He's just waiting on you. Like, what are you praying for what you want to do for? I've already showed you. I've already given you the stuff. I've made you ready. Get to work. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I believe he did call me to work with children, but, I don't like children, so I'm not really going to do it. So I've been praying to God what He wants me to do. What? What did you say? Yeah, I believe, I think God probably wants me to go on a missionary trip, but I can't afford it, and I really don't like going out of the country. I think He wants me to go over there, but so I've been praying to God what He can have me do instead. Like there is a door number 2. We literally believe that God has door number 2. There's what He wants me to do, but then there's what He's going to let me do because I didn't want to do what He wants me to do. We literally think that way. So wrong. It's door number 1. That's it. It's door number 1. Oh, you want to spin your wheels? Spin your wheels. God will let you sit around and spin your wheels. He let the children of Israel spin their wheels for years. One time 40 years, one time 70. You really want to do that? You really want to plant your butt on planet Earth for that long and just spin your wheels? Let God let you circle a mountain? Or do you want to get to work? Do you want to approach Him with your need, let Him answer your prayer, and send you out to do something? Boom, you're ready to go. Always. Well, I don't have the resources to provide for my family. I don't have the good job to give them what I think they want. Listen, I believe God would look at you as a man and go, hey, dude, you're at home with your kids 6 nights a week. You're pouring your life into them. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing with exactly what I've given you to do. And promise you, providing for is not as much about monetary as it is life lesson, as it is time, as it is being there and being with and supporting, that kind of stuff. That's more. But I don't have, but you do have. But I don't have, but you do have. That's God's response. We don't come to God with, I need, and Him go, oh, I know, I'm trying. I've been looking. I just can't get a good deal. Right? No, God's like, but you do have. But you do have. I don't even think God responds with, I know, but you're going to get. So just hang loose. In a couple of years you'll be able to. You don't have to do anything for now. Yeah, you'll get it. You'll be fine. God doesn't do that way. God's like, you're supposed to have already been. Here it is. Let's go. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Second thought we serve from this. We're going to offer God what we have and trust Him to give us what we need. So you see what we've got. So we would say we don't have, and God would say, yeah, you do. And you would say, oh, yeah, I do. What do you want me to do with it? God would respond with, offer it back. I've given, you have, now offer it back, and we'll use together. Let's see how the story goes like that. So verse 3. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 3. I forgot to tell you. Tammy, it's 2 Kings chapter 3. She didn't do it. Elisha said, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. She brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. Now just kind of hold on. This is just weird. You can admit it. It's just weird. You've got a little bit of olive oil in your jar, okay, your jug. And God would say, now go get a bunch of empty jars and pour it out. Just pour it out. I've watched this work in the lives of people. I really have. I've watched people in the early days of our church. We would be standing in the parking lot, and there would be 5 or 6 guys of us standing around. And literally, we didn't have any money. Still don't. We don't have any money. Okay? But people would come up, and there would be a need. They'd be like, I need, and they would tell us exactly what they need. We didn't even get a chance to say, how can I help you? It was just like, this is what I need. And it would be money. And I watch guys all the time. They would reach in their pocket, and I knew they didn't have it, and they would give it away. They would hand it out. They would take what little they had, they would just pour it out. And what I thought was weird is every time they put their hand back in their pocket, there was still more to come out. Now I'm not talking about miraculous, hey, there was 1 5 in there. Now there's 2. I mean, wouldn't that be great? I could just teach you that. Listen, if you got $1 in your pocket, just take it out and throw it away, because then when you put it back in, there's going to be 2. I mean, that's all we do then, wouldn't we? We just stand around. And when we get to the number we like, we would stop. That's what that is. No, it was just one of those things. It just kind of happened. The more you had, whatever you had, you gave away. And as you gave it away, there was always something there to replace it. It was always enough. God always provided the need we had, right? Wouldn't it be nice? I mean, I would love to live in the land of, I've got this, I've got all my needs met, and then I've got this in reserve, just in case I want something. Wouldn't that be a great place to live? I mean, I'd love to live there. I really would. He may not let me ever live there. You know why? Because that's where I want to live. Right? Because I honestly believe He wants us to live in the land of, you don't really need anything. Because that's where I find myself. I don't really need anything. I have everything that I need. I don't have everything I want, right? I mean, and I do argue with God, but I've done a whole lot, God. Couldn't I have a couple of things I want? Right? Don't you? You start naming the stuff you've done. I've served and I've done without. I've done without for so long. I need more. No, I find myself, you always live in need. Okay? In the land of needs met. And I think it's awesome. Not where I want. Not where I want to live even. It's still in my heart. I'd rather have more. Who wouldn't, right? I'll just be honest with you. I want more. I want more. God would say, let's just hang out with what we need. Let's just hang out with you. Give back everything I've already given you, and I will show you how we can live in it. I'll show you how we can live in that need. Now, this wasn't a magic trick, but what happened was, so they brought the jars. So her son, their job was to just shuttle jars. That's all their job was. So I believe she had a son that would bring it over. There was two. Bring over an empty jar, hand it to mom, and mom would either dip or she would pour oil. Okay? She would hand that jar to the other son, and that other son would take the jar and he would set it over here on the shelf. Okay? So it was just this little assembly line. Empty jar, mom, fill it up. Son, stack it up. Empty jar, mom, fill it up. Son, stack it up. Now, understand a couple of things here. When the prophet said, go get jars, he didn't say, go get this exact size jar, this exact color of jar with this type of lid jar. And I firmly believe they went to their neighbors and they gathered everything that even remotely looked like a jar. All right? Whether it was a big pot or whether it was a little bit smaller one, it could have been a dog dish, it could have been a butter tub, I don't know. But I just believe that as God says go get, they just go and they gather, and it doesn't doesn't matter what the vessel looks like. Now that's just a side note. I'm going to bring that back around here in just a minute, I promise. Okay, I know that sounds like stupid stuff, but it's coming. So here it comes, and they just keep doing, Now, mom doesn't know how much oil is in the jar, all right? You got to understand that. So they don't have she doesn't have her flashlight going, getting low. How many jars you got, man? Because ain't no way. We're not going to make it. So she doesn't know that. She just keeps filling the jars. The task at hand was fill the empty jars you've got with the oil that's in the jug, okay? You just keep doing it. That's what she was doing. It would just keep happening and keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. I firmly believe she filled up so many jars that she got tired of filling up jars. And there's a life lesson there. As God calls you to do what you don't think's possible to do, you will get in and do it, and then you will be doing it so much within Him that you'll almost get tired of doing what He wants you to do. Anybody? You ain't never been tired of doing what God calls you to do? But she just kept pouring oil in jars. And I'm sure every time she pulled that spigot, because she was a human woman, every time she poured the spigot or reached down in with her ladle or whatever she was using, she thought, it's not going to be enough. And yet it was. Every time. This has got to be it. Well, crap. Ain't no way. Then all of a sudden she looks at her son and she goes, hey, come on. We're going to keep doing it. And he says, did I already go that far? Yeah, there he goes. But he replied, there's not a jar left. Not a jar left. She opens the spigot. Does the oil run out on the floor? Nope. Does it even drip? Nope. Empty jar, or finish the jars. Jar's empty. No more oil. Amazing that God provides. This is where I came back to, I'd really like to live and want, but He doesn't get me there. God provides, we do, God provides, we do, God provides, we do, God provides, we do. When it's time to stop doing, God stops providing. One more and we'll finish. Actually, I think, just verse 7 is all I'll give you. She went and told the man of God, and he said, go, sell the oil, pay your debts, and you and your sons can live on what's left. Take care of you. There's a whole life financial lesson there, but we're not going to go there, Larry. I'll let you teach that later, because Larry's a big financial guy, and he can tell you about this stuff. But pay your debts, pay it off, get free and clear so that nobody's coming to steal your kids, all right? Unless you don't like your kids, then hold a little bit of debt back. No, go pay your debts, get all that taken care of, and your sons can live on what's left. You'll be able to live. You're going to live, okay, on what's left. You're going to live on it, all right? You're not going to put it aside. You're not going to save it for a rainy day. You're going to live on it. You're going to use it. And every time you reach into that box for the money you need, it's going to be there. Just like the oil was. When you had jars, you filled them up, you reach in the box, money's going to be there. When you need $1 here, there's going to be $1 there. When you need 5 over here, there's going to be a 5 there. That's what happens when God says, we're going to work and do with what you've got for everything I need you to do. It's always going to be there. I promise you, this works. I will stand on this promise till the day I die. This church has done nothing but this. I promise you, there's no way this church has survived on financial savings, on mutual funds, on extravagant giving. It was God's people doing with what God provided, and here we are 14 years later, and we're still doing the exact same thing with the exact same stuff. And it just, no matter when we reach in, you all got if you're on our newsletter, you got the card. I'm going to boast on you for real quick. All the stuff that got done this summer, almost $70,000 worth of stuff got done this summer. We didn't have $70,000. We've never had $70,000. That's a 5-digit number. Y'all understand that? That 5-digit number? I didn't even know we could do 5-digit numbers. All right? Literally, when I came here, in the beginning, I watched, we would sit around Sunday school class, and the lady who did the checkbook and stuff, she goes, we got to pay the insurance bill, and if we don't pay the insurance bill, we're gonna lose everything. And people would stand up, and they would just kind of like, we got to pay the insurance now. And they would pay the insurance, and that's how life was around here. Well, when I came along, I didn't even know when the insurance was due. I didn't even ask. So I put people out there to kind of watch that. And they would come to me, and they would say, we really need to pay the insurance. I'm like, write the check. If that's the most important, write the check. We ain't got enough. I'm like, you got to write the check. We'll deal with the bounce part later. Well, I mean, I was a younger guy. I had my own thoughts of the process. Y'all don't laugh at me. If you didn't have enough money to pay the water bill, you wrote a bad check, and you hoped you could beat it to the bank, right? Oh, yeah, I did that. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at you. Yeah, you did it. Probably still do sometimes. I don't know. But guess what? We never bounced a check. We never beat it to the bank. We never tried. We never fought. If it was due, we did it. Okay, we just wrote it. It's amazing. This year, we didn't have to borrow any money. We fixed everything that was provided for us to fix. We had to fix it. The roof was bad. It's done. Okay? Fire department said, you got to put in one of the, y'all be keep asking what these things are. It's a fire alarm, just in case our fireproof building burns down. Literally, in 1993, they made us build this building where you couldn't burn it down. I've tried to burn the building down, I promise you. I've set off flares, I've set off torches, I've set off smoke. I've done everything in this building you could possibly do to burn it down because, honestly, I went through a phase where I said, it's worth more if we burn it down. Okay? I probably shouldn't have said that on live Facebook, but y'all got to remind me when you're live, don't say certain things that 1 billion people could see. Anyway, so they built it to where you couldn't burn it down. I mean, literally, this place can catch on fire. I'm going to stand right here. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. It's not going. But the fire department says, "Oh no, now you got to have a fire system, and it's got to enunciate in 3 different languages." It's got to yell fire in 3 different languages because non-speaking people, English people, are stupid. When they see fire, they don't run until their language comes on and says, "Oshigogo." I don't know. I don't have to hear it in any language. I'm out. Except in this building, I'm going to stand right here and watch it burn. It's just not going to burn. Anyway, so all that happens, and we're like, we can't afford a freaking fire alarm system. He says, do it or close the door. And that guy actually has the ability to put a lock on the door. So we're like, all right, call the guy, put it in. Can't promise you when I'm going to pay you. He says, I can when I'm done. You know how long it's taken them to put this fire alarm in? I'm not lying. We didn't have the money when they started, and if they'd have finished when they said they were going to finish, we wouldn't have had the money to do it. They've been putting it in since what, March? No, they started right before our Christmas program last year in December. Literally, there's like 20 devices, a couple of miles of wire, and a battery for $30,000. They're still not done, and we still hadn't had to write them a check. That's crazy. But we know today if they came, we have to do it. Just keep doing what God has asked you to do, and He will provide with what He's provided for you to do what He wants you to do. It's an amazing life lesson concept. So let's run it home. I got one more analogy I'm going to show you. Oh, this watch broke. Oh, crap, that one's still working. 2 Corinthians 4:7. Bring it home. This is what it looks like to you. This is what your life looks like when you walk out. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. This is what's really, really cool. So here you are. Now you're a jar. All right? So you know that those jars, it doesn't matter what color they are, what shape they are. You know, we've got all kinds of shapes of jars in here because everything's a shape. You've got this power in jars of clay, meaning the jar is insignificant. Okay, a clay jar was the least valuable of all jars, okay? We've got that and I hate to burst your bubble, but you're not worth anything. Your body, okay, your vessel, not worth a dime. $6? We used to value ourselves based on how much we owed. Do you remember that? What are you worth? What are you worth? And it was what you had. And then I found out that everybody was telling me how much they were worth based on what they had was actually financed to the hilt. So your value is actually what you're in debt for. That's so stupid. Basically nothing. Back to nothing. So I'm worth zero. I don't even want to reach in my pocket and find out how much I'm worth. I'm worth a set of keys to a bathroom. That's it. That's it. I'm worth a toilet. You take that analogy as far as you want to take it. I don't care. Literally, you're worth nothing. That's what that scripture's saying. You ain't worth nothing. But what you got inside of you, worth a lot. And he chooses to put what's worth everything in things that are worth nothing. Why? So that the power is shown from God, not you. Shown from God, not you. Back to that mountain guy. When you got to really meet him, he was so awesome because he was the most just quiet, timid guy. Okay, so his vessel was this huge bulk of a thing, and yet inside was this compassion of God that came out. That was so awesome to meet him and talk to him and just see that happening. What are you so worried about in your life, man? He's given this power that you're packing around a vessel worth nothing, telling you that you've been given everything you need to do, everything he wants you to do. Why are we so worried? Why are we so worried? One last story. Go ahead and show that picture. I'll just put it up there and just let it lay there for just a minute. Pastor Eddie, and give him all the credit for the story because I don't come up with this kind of stuff. Pastor Eddie was here for our conference, and he's a paddleboard pastor, literally. If you call him and he says, I'm in my office, that means he's on his paddleboard out giving tours on the paddleboard, and he takes people, this is really funny, he takes people and he puts them in the middle of the mangroves, and then he preaches to them. Well, what are they going to do, swim home? Right? It's really funny. Oh, that reminds me. Y'all saw the dental bus was on. We had the dental bus out there. 75 people got free dental care this week that wouldn't have had access to it. I was reading about like life decisions that they have because part of that is witnessing. And there were some rededications in there. And I started thinking, how hard would it be to get somebody to rededicate their life if you've got your knee on their chest with a pair of pliers in their mouth? Right? So we got a lot of credit this week for the works of God, but I think it may have been the dentist and the pliers. I don't know. So anyway, Pastor Eddie's out there and he's telling these stories, and he comes across this, all right? This is a leaf on a white mangrove tree, all right? We have, in our area here, we have two species of mangroves. We have red and we have white. There's a black mangrove that we don't have. But the white mangrove is the only one with these two. It just looks like a regular leaf to you, right? Looks like a regular leaf and stem. Nothing special. Well, I don't have a... Okay. Right here. Oh, that's where I fall. Right there. Those are actually what they're called glands. Now, Pastor Eddie told me that, and he goes, this leaf has glands. And I'm like, I don't care. No, I mean, because he sees all this stuff, like he's like deep spiritual. I'm like, I don't care. Okay? No. He said, no. You're going to love this story. So I'm going to try it and see if you actually love the story. He took a doctor out on his paddleboard tours, and he's like, and so Pastor Eddie grabs the leaf, and he goes, and this leaf has glands in it, and the doctor's like 3 of them, and they start snickering. And Pastor Eddie's like, what's so funny? What's so funny? And the doctor's like, they were the most renowned doctors at the Boston Hospital, all right? And one of them specializes in the endocrine system. You know what the endocrine system is? It's the glands, right? So this guy went to school for an additional 4 years to study glands, okay? And so this doctor says, I know you like to call them glands, dude, but listen, I study glands. And the gland is one of the most complex organisms on the planet. He says, I work with people for years to make their glands do specific things. I can regulate their weight with them using medicine or their brain. I can regulate attitude. I can regulate their mood. He says, I've studied this. I know what glands do. He says, you probably need to quit calling them glands, dude, because that's on a leaf, okay? And Pastor Ray's like, yeah, you know what? You got yours, I got mine. But I believe God put glands on these. Disappeared. 2 weeks later, this same doctor calls him and says, okay, so they're glands. Pastor Eddie says, I know. And the doctor says, no, you don't understand, dude. I kind of like God. You know, I know about God, but now you're telling me that he put a gland that's as intricate as the ones that I went to school for an extra 4 years on top of my doctor and work years with people to do what I want them to do. You're telling me he put 2 on every leaf of a mangrove tree. I need to know more about him. And so he did. So I took that leaf and I'm like, that's crazy. And I found out that the glands actually, so a mangrove is sitting in salt water. The tree sucks up all this salt water. And if it's a black mangrove tree, which we don't have, and I want to see one, it takes all the salt that it needs to live, converts all the oxygen that it needs to do, and then it takes the excess salt and it puts it on the back of its leaf. Okay, that's pretty cool. And you know what happens to that? All the birds who are flying across that are going too far, they can land on the mangroves. They can lick the salt. Critters can lick the salt. Humans, if you're out and you need salt, which you do sometimes, you can lick the salt off the back of the leaf. It's just provided as excess for people to live on. This one, the glands actually filter the salt that the plant doesn't need, the extra salt, and it puts it out in this little bulb of fluid, and that's where you get pollination from a mangrove tree. Whether it's a bee that needs the salt or a bird that needs the salt, anybody. So this one holds it right there. The plant's already used everything it needs, and then it just hands the rest out. Come on, you can't draw a life lesson from that. I mean, God, I wouldn't even want to live in salt water, much less produce life from salt water. Much less produce life from salt water, and then live with excess so that others can share it. I mean, come on. And here's a mangrove tree that God thought that intricate to put 2 glands to use for the rest of the planet. And then here you are, a worthless clay pot that God put inside of you the most amazing story of himself that you can live in and then live others off the excess of. That's your life. You're literally that tree, living in salt, sucking up what you need, taking God in, and in the excess providing for others to live off of as well. That's crazy. It's crazy. Go gather some jars and see if God doesn't keep filling them up. And when the jars stop coming, you're going to live off of what's there. And others are going to live off the excess. A daughter and sons teach us all that from the life of the prophet Elijah. Stand with me, and we're going to go. We're going to get back to work, because that's what this is for. I hope you didn't come in here and this is your spiritual walk. I came to church. This is to get ready to go to work. That's what we're going to do. We're going to pray, and we're going to work. Larry, I picked on you a little bit. Would you pray for us and send us out?